Hello and welcome back to the Don't Be Fun podcast. This is episode number 2. I am Derek Schoonover flying solo today. Angela Bean is out of town. She's at a graduation across the world, just across the state, but it's a long ways anyway. So I got all the good stuff. I did some research. I'm gonna try to just really do a good job here. Just it's tough for me to talk about anything that's not face off. So I'm gonna do what I can and really get into it. Our topic today is violence, and we're probably going to go ahead and cover this again when Angela's around. I know she has some insights into violence. The whole idea of this topic thing is to have different points of view, and we both have different points of view on it. So this one, you get more just one point of view. Today, my point of view. Although I do feel like I have different points of view. I have bipolar disorder. It's an odd thing too, and that comes around. It feels like I am definitely a different person, whether it's depressive or manic or normal. That's 3 different people right there. Damn, it's 3 different people, and it can feel good, it can feel bad, but anyway, I feel pretty normal right now. Do I look normal? I feel pretty normal right now. So you get my my mid-range sort of. This is my baseline thing that I want to talk from, you know. So we're talking about violence today, and violence is everywhere. It's crazy how it's everywhere. I mean, the overreaching ideas that it's happening constantly everywhere around us all the time. So you got school shootings and mass shootings and stabbings over in England. They took guns away, and so people are stabbing each other now. I love it. I think that's pretty hilarious. You take knives away, and people will be hitting each other with rocks. The violence bubbling over, I don't think has much to do with guns. I think it comes out in that way because it's easy to get guns here, obviously, but if you see that, oh yeah, if you take guns away, people stab each other, take knives away, people hit each other with rocks, take rocks away, they'll hit with fists. It's a frustration, I think, that boils over, and it needs to come out some way, and it finds the easiest route out. You know, there's difficult routes out with that frustration, and it's addressing your life. It's addressing societal issues. It's talking. It's having those long conversations that don't lead to anything. You know, it's really putting in the work, but those don't solve a problem the way that violence solves a problem. That's why I think UFC is super popular too right now, is because it gets to the point. It gets right to the fucking point. It's not like, oh yeah, it's not like a Miss America pageant or something. It's like these 2 guys are going to punch each other's faces until one of them stops punching, you know? I mean, there's rules, whatever, I don't give a fuck. But same with boxing, pro wrestling. So it's interesting, like with me, I like pro wrestling. I'm not as into it as I was, but I certainly understand it. And I don't like it as much because it's trying to look more like a UFC thing, and I'm not really too into that. I liked the pageantry of it. I liked the stories and the characters and all the weird shit that was going on, you know, the cartoonishness of it, the goofy, over the top. Well, it was more the Attitude Goldberg era, but you know, I like that stuff, and I thought it was the violence that I liked until I look back, until I see that, because it looks brutal these days. I mean, they make it look crazy, but the stories and the characters seem to be lacking a little bit. That could be my old curmudgeon-y self and stuff, but that's one end of the spectrum, you know, goofy, fake violence. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which, if we're looking at sports, it's like the UFC or something like that. In life, uh, I mean, you know, that's all part of life. But I thought when I was younger, I thought I had an advanced or an enlightened view on violence, that I did not really, well, when I was in my 20s, that I didn't really like real violence. I had gone through that phase of seeking out real violence. There's these movies called Faces of Death and Traces of Death, which I thought was a joke, but Traces of Death was just like Faces of Death, except for it had death metal in the background. It was music, and these were horrible, horrible movies, and there was bunches of them. You had to search them out, you know. You could get them at the video store if you had a weird video store. But they were really, really bad movies, and there's some shit in there that really fucked with me, you know, and stuck with me and everything. It's like war atrocities and fights and stuff like that, but it's just people dying. It's just dead people, like plane crashes and shit. And it was like, man, okay, so that was one level for me personally where I said, I don't particularly like this. This doesn't work for me. And so I delineated from that, and I drew a line, and I said, I prefer fantasy, fake violence that's done well, you know, in the movies. I like movies or TV shows that are violent. I also like violent imagery and music, you know. I like hip-hop music, talk about shooting people all the time, or like crazy, the horrorcore, like Insane Clown Posse and stuff, where it's like chainsawing people, or ghetto boys. There's a hardcore stuff, you know, where, I mean, even it took me a long time to realize how hardcore Cypress Hill was, until I started listening to it. I was like, holy fuck, these guys are crazy as shit, you know, the shit that they're talking about. And but I like that. I lean towards that, the darker side of things. I like death metal music and metal music with crazy lyrics, like Slayer and Cannibal Corpse and shit like that, you know. And then I guess the next part of evolution, the evolution of it, was that I recognized in myself that I had the ability to hurt people. And I didn't like, okay, not only did I recognize that I had the ability to hurt people, and I'm not saying like I'm a super good fighter or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I recognize that I'm a big, strong person, and if somebody wasn't expecting it, I could hurt somebody really, really bad, you know. And in realizing that, I also realized that it was possible that I was a little too ready for that to happen for my own comfort level. I was always sort of looking and sizing people up and saying, okay, yeah, I could fuck that dude up or whatever, you know. I was always doing that, and it created this atmosphere of tension in my body and in my mind, you know. And so at some point I decided, like, it got really bad, and it got really bad. Like, I felt like I could definitely hurt somebody, and wanted to. That sounds so fucked up to say, but I also felt like just on a regular day-to-day thing, I was just this fucking crazy psycho running around thinking about how I could kill everybody, you know. And I didn't like that image. I don't want that image, you know. And so from that point, I took a step back from fantasy violence. And I was playing a lot of video games and stuff back then. And video games does not matter what side you fall on, because I don't think video games cause psychopaths, you know what I'm saying? But there are some motherfucking violent video games. One of my favorite ones is one of the most violent ones, I think, or maybe not most violent, but like effectively violent, was Manhunt, the PlayStation 2. I remember getting crazy with that game, and it really puts you in there. Really puts you in there. But one of the ones where I realized, because that one I was playing unconsciously, but one of the ones that I realized that it was weird, and I was a little bit more conscious about it, was Call of Duty World at War, I think, and they're playing in World War II and running around shooting the shit out of people. Lots of people. Holy fuck. I think that was what happened. I started counting. I was like, damn, there's a lot of people that I am straight up shooting the shit out of, you know, and it wasn't the shooting part that got me, it was the flamethrower part, where I'd flamethrow people in the game and then they'd run around screaming, you know, because they were on fire and it hurt. And I was like, this is weird, because this is based on real stuff that really happened. And now it's an entertainment, you know. Like, if this was a real video of somebody flamethrowing people, it would be horrendous, but it's not, so it's okay. It's actually fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. It wasn't until years later that I decided, okay, I'm going to step back from violent video games, and I'm going to just, and violence in movies and TV and everything, I'm going to try to avoid that kind of stuff. I did for a long time, and I realized, I think what a lot of people realize when they go when they quit doing something, is that just barring yourself off from that part of the world doesn't necessarily work. You have to have a sort of inoculation against it. I think sometimes people have that problem if they quit drinking. Suddenly their social life is over. They don't go out because it's too much of a temptation, but that's the whole idea, is you can't avoid this stuff. It's there. I mean, it's there. You have to have some level of involvement with it, or otherwise you're a monk. You'd be a monk, you know. And that's maybe that's your life. Maybe you want that. I don't want it. I don't want to be a monk. I don't have the fortitude to be a monk. So instead of being a monk, you have to be among everything. Look at that. That was a cute wordplay right there. But what I feel like I understood about myself and violence is that violence is the overflow of frustration. It's what happens when you've reached the limits of your ability to communicate the frustration that's building up inside. And I say frustration because I feel like that's a good combination. You could say anger, you could say confusion, but I think what leads to violence is a combination of anger and confusion. And then anger can break down into, you know, sadness and I don't know, other stuff. I'm not here to break down the emotions for you, but it's a good idea to try to figure out how your emotions break down. I get sad and then I get angry. It goes in that direction. It doesn't go the other way. You know, if I get sad, I get angry, and then withdrawn, and then I'm fine. And I don't like it. I don't like to do that. So I have to recognize when I'm sad, so I can avoid getting angry, because it's super easy to do it when I get sad. When I get sad, and my anger comes out. It's come out in various ways. I used to punch walls all the time. I don't really punch walls anymore. Any wall punchers out there? I bet there is. But there's a few, even if there's only one other person listening. If you got yeah. So I try not to punch walls anymore. I don't do that as much. It's been a while, you know, a year probably, almost a year. Haven't broken my knuckles in a while. Broken those fingers in a while. So societally speaking, we're a fairly violent society. I don't know any other society. I've never been involved in another society besides the United States of America, unless you count the world, the human society. But I don't feel involved in that. I feel like America, for all the talk of building an actual physical wall, we're a pretty walled off society, you know. That's what I feel like. I know what it's like personally to wall myself off, metaphorically speaking, and that's what it feels like is happening with the United States. I don't care if you disagree. I don't care if you agree. That's just what I see. And that's a huge thing, is that, I don't know, what we see sort of makes the reality. And if all we see is violence, that's going to be the reality of it. And if you have mass shootings and stuff, and you start to notice an increase in those mass shootings, that goes right along with the availability of information and the you know, the saturation of news and stuff like that, and commentary. It makes sense. If I don't know, it does make sense. And I think that is why a lot of times we turn to blame art for things like this, is because we see the news as vital, or we don't see art as vital, where art is a reaction to our lives, to the lives that we live. So it's rough when those things sort of blur, the lines get blurred, you know what I mean, and the news becomes more artistic. It's less like, hey, look, there is something that happened over there, and this is what I've been told, this is what I can see, this is the information that I have about what happened over there. And it's more like, something happened over there, here's what I know, and here's what I think, and here's what I feel in addition to those things. And that's not great, I don't think. Because there's a delineation point. I just said delineation twice in 15 minutes. I should get an award. I don't even know what it means, honestly. I feel like it means the point where you stop and then start something else. So the delineation point in that, from news to art, is where you say, here's what happened over there, here's the information. That's where news stops, where you say, here's what I think about it. That's where commentary begins, and here's what I feel about it is where art begins. And I believe that our reverence for art, it leads to us not recognizing art happening. So we want to say art is important. Art is important. This movie, this music, this drawing, this this statue, all this stuff is art, and it's so important. But art is just taking a thing that is and turning it into your feelings instead. So if I take a blank piece of paper and I draw something on it, that's my feelings right there. Even if I say, this picture of whatever it is, you know, this picture of a fish in lily pads is actually my childhood abuse. I'm not saying I was abused as a child, I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, it isn't. It's the way that I feel about my childhood abuse. Again, not really abused as a child. So so that's the thing, is we're a bit, okay, so we're a bit loosey-goosey on our news. We want things that are violent. We enjoy it. It gives us pleasure. It brings the heart rate up, you know. That is a good feeling, and it's good to acknowledge that. But we are not recognizing the point where facts become art. And we're not willing to say that this is art, that Fox News, MSNBC, I don't know any of this shit. I don't watch these fucking things. But we're not willing to say that these, even fucking Donald Trump, man. We're not willing to say that Donald Trump saying this is this, and this is how I feel about this, that there's a point where his facts become art. They're his art. He's talking about what he feels about stuff. And he's got a book called Art of the Deal, man. He knows what he's talking about. It's the fucking truth. There's just a point where you stop saying facts and you start saying, you just start using your artistic license. And we don't want to say that Donald Trump's an artist, but he is. Totally. We don't want to say that MSNBC, Fox News, CNBC, all these people are artists, but they are. Bill O'Reilly was an artist. Sean Hannity is an artist. All these fucking guys. I don't know. Even that dude with the white hair, Anderson Cooper. They're all artists. They're not journalists. Journalists were different. It was a different thing than creating content. Journalism was reporting what happened, and that was it. You know, it wasn't saying, here's what happened, this is what I feel about it. So I feel like I feel like what I feel about violence doesn't matter at all. And I want to think that is an overriding factor in the violence that's happening in the world today, is that everybody feels that way. What I think about it doesn't matter at all. But in truth, that's all that matters. That's it. Our revolution isn't going to be the Summer of Love revolution. It's not going to be the French Revolution. You know, it's not going to be the American Revolution. It's not going to be moving into different land. It's not going to be cutting people's heads off. It's not even going to be expanding our minds or what. I mean, it is. It's a bit of expanding our minds, but it's an internal revolution. It's in every single person, as opposed to some big sweeping thing. But there is a point where it does start to sweep, where it catches on. You know, that's like if you watch a video on YouTube and you're like, oh shit, there's only 8 people watching this, but it's so good. And then you keep an eye on it and you're like, oh, hey, look at that. It's up to 1,500 now. That's pretty good. And then it gets faster and faster and faster, and it's like, oh shit, it only took one day to get to 87 million views. You know, that's how it works. And we just experience time in an odd way. I really want to get see, this is what I'm talking about, is I have certain ideas for sure, but Angela, I know, has different viewpoints on violence, but mostly particularly because she's a woman, and women have a completely different experience of violence than men do at all points in time, even now, especially now, even maybe. I don't know. See, that's why she needs to be here. We're going to get her in here. That's why I think this is a big topic. That I think we think of violence as somebody getting stabbed, somebody getting shot, somebody getting punched, tripped, kicked, murdered, killed, raped, violated, you know, those types of violence. But violence is all around us. There's violence in advertising, there's mental violence, there's violence at work. You know, where your job, where you got to deal with something that's not good, that's bad, and it hurts you. It hurts your mind every single day. But there's no change in it. There's no way to switch it, because you're in the machine. You're in you're part of the machine. You're not even a cog. You're like some grease for the machine. You know. There's violence in art. I think most art is violent. I think it's a way of structuring your frustration. The release of your frustration into art. So somebody chisels away at wood or paints with this determined focus, you know what I mean? Or writes poems, does comedy, does movies, does anything. And I have a huge gardening. I mean, I have a huge variety, or a huge spectrum of art in my head. I have very little respect for art as an institution, because I don't think it needs respect from people. I think it's beyond that. That's why I'm not interested in art that lasts forever, because there's room. There's room, you know. Get rid of it. Let's do something new. There's room to do new things. Nothing needs to be revered and held on to forever. It's all disposable. We just want to think that it isn't. That's what I feel like. I heard a thing about Roman statues and stuff, and maybe it was Greek, that they're all washed, they're all white, they're all beautiful white, you know, but they weren't. That they were these garish colors and they just got washed away. Isn't that weird? That kind of opens up, it makes history look different, you know? I don't know. I always picture history as black and white. That's a dumb thing to do, man. It was probably more colorful than it is today. Because there's so much more light today. Light. Oh, violence in advertising. So the violence in advertising is important to me. I think I rail against several things. Advertising is one of them. And employment is another one. I don't like those two things at all. I don't see any redeeming value in them. I'm not saying that there isn't redeeming value in work. I'm saying employment. It's very rare that there's any redeeming value in it. There's definitely meaningfulness in hard work, in labor, in taking care of things that need to be taken care of, but this bullshit employment fucking thing that we deal under now, it's ridiculous. I heard that somewhere at 85% of work is unnecessary in this country, and it's getting high. That's getting higher with technology, with the machines that are able to do work. And I'm down with it. Bring them on. Let's do it. Let's get it started. Let's get these machines going, man. I hate them so much, but I would love it to see a machine putting together a sandwich instead of a person wasting their fucking life away for minimum wage, putting together a pizza or a sandwich or something. You know what I mean? So violence in advertising, it's not like, oh, this is a violent advertisement where something happens that's violent. It's that you are pummeled by violence you're pummeled by advertising every single minute of the day. You don't get away with it. I have a challenge. I challenge you to look around where you're at right now and not find 100 advertisements. And what I mean by that is this is some dog spray, and it's got the name on it, and it's bigger than everything else, you know? That's fine. It makes sense. You got to pick it up at the store. But that's an advertisement. It's saying you bought this. This is what it is. Go buy it again. I don't, you know. And then there's that's one thing because that goes away. The other stuff is like this. Direct TV. You can't see it. The Direct TV logo right there. Hey, it's Direct TV. Or your TV. Every time you turn your TV on, the logo comes up. But what kind of TV it is? It's like, don't forget. This is what I am over here. I mean, I got on my mouse, there's a little thing. On my phone, there's a thing. On my little printer, Dynamo, Microband, I could just count them up. There's dog ear wipes over there. There's Bodycology over here. And you get that there's a point to it, that there's a reason for it, but we always want to go and say that the reason is benign. The reason is to remind me what it is, so if I want to buy it again, I'll know. Or if somebody asks me what kind it is, I'll know. But that's not the reason. The reason is to, I don't know. There's all different ways of looking at it. I think the reason is to slowly chip away at our awareness to where we're just these hollow homunculi that walk around doing the bidding of our overlords and don't really feel anything except for frustration. And is it any wonder that we live in a violent world right now? Alright, that got depressing as shit. Depressing as shit. But that was violence. We're going to come back to violence when Angela's back, because she has some insights. That's what I mean, is I go down my own spot, and maybe it was maybe we learned something today. I don't know. Oh, my stance on violence, just try not to do it. Try not to. Like, actively work against creating violence. So, if you get frustrated, okay, this is hard advice to give because it's hard advice to take, but if you get frustrated, talk. If you get confused, talk. If you get sad, talk. Talk to somebody. Write about it. Put it out there in the world. Try to diffuse it a little bit. Sometimes writing about it, it changes it. It becomes something different. You don't even know what you were thinking until you put it down. And I think it's important. And we're not all fucking Stephen King, that asshole, with all them books. But we can all write, for the most part, I think. Maybe not. You know, you can talk, though. Most people can talk. Alright? Most people can talk. And you can talk into a phone, because fucking most people have phones. You can record, you can listen, you can hear things that you don't know are even there. I did an experiment one time where I was in this state that I'm in. This is my middle state, my baseline. And I wrote a letter to my depressed self. And I sealed it up. And I gave it to Angela to give to me when I became depressed. And then I became depressed. She gave me the letter. I opened it up. And I read it. And I wrote a letter back to my baseline self. And when I got back to baseline and I got the letter and I read it, I expected it to be whiny. I expected it to be real whiny, but it was a lot different than I expected. You know, it was angry, that's for sure, but it was also still intelligent and stuff. And I don't feel intelligent when I'm depressed at all. I don't feel aware at all. And it was still there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that's that's still there, you know. That's because it feels like it goes away. It gets frustrating sometimes. But and most of the advice that I give is advice that Angela's given me. That's what we have a tendency to do, is we regurgitate each other's advice back to each other, and it works out pretty good. She's really fucking smart, and talking is so powerful. It's one of the things that we do that other creatures don't do. We rely on it so much more than other animals. It's this vocalization of emotions and sounds and stuff. And it's really fucking powerful. And so if I'm feeling a certain thing and I don't say it, it just gets worse. But if I say it, it might really suck for a minute. It might really suck. It might fuck everything up. But it doesn't grow like cancer after that, you know. You're saying it and you cut it out. Don't let that shit grow. All right. Violence. Yeah. We're on to something new I learned this week. Something new I learned this week. I learned that I cannot fuck with my sleep. I switched over a couple of weeks ago to an old job that I had with a new schedule, working nights. I start at 1 o'clock in the morning and I get off at 7:30 in the morning. So now I go to bed at around 8 o'clock and I wake up around 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock. That's the optimal, is that I get 6 hours of sleep every night. If I get 15 minutes more than 6 hours of sleep, I feel it. If I get 15 minutes less than 6 hours, I feel it. And the way that I feel it is very specific to me. If you got bipolar 1, you got bipolar 1 out there, maybe check into it. But I don't like it. It's not enjoyable. But if I get more than 6 hours of sleep, I lean into the depressive side of myself. If I get less, I get manic. So if I get 4 hours of sleep for 3 nights in a row, I am the happiest person you'll ever fucking see, until I explode into anger and confusion, or into a confusion and then anger. So and then violence. Confusion, anger, and then violence. So that, if I get 2 hours extra, if I sleep a full 8 hours 3 days in a row, I get to be the most depressive person in the world. I get sad and confused, angry. violent. So, if you got the bipolar 1 disorder, I'm not giving any medical advice. That should be fairly obvious. That should be fairly obvious right here, you guys. Come on now. I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm saying that is something that is not talked about in my experience, is sleep and how important it is. And some people need more sleep. Some people need less. I mean, that's the whole thing, is I've fought against this for years. Probably 6 years now. Maybe 5 years now. That I have known that 6 hours is the right amount. And I hate it. I hate it so much because I want to sleep constantly. I'm always tired and I always want to sleep. Some people just naturally do that. They say you get 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. They're insomniacs or whatever. But one of the side effects of it is that I never have trouble going to sleep. I just lay down and crash out. One of the other side effects is I sometimes have trouble staying awake. Like tonight, it's 9:46 right now. I've been up since 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I am going to be up till 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's a long stretch, man. It gets lonely and weird because nobody's around. This whole city fucking shuts down at like 12. It shuts down at 10. There's some outliers at 12, 30, but they're all fucking bars. I don't drink or anything. I go hang out in a fucking bar like an asshole. What else would I do, though? I like to go grocery shopping at night. This is why Angela's supposed to be here. This shit gets weird, alright? I do like to go grocery shopping at night, but a lot of grocery stores close down from 12:30 to 5 o'clock. What a weird time that is to close down. And Walmart's open, but the buses are all shut down. You gotta walk everywhere. Son of a bitch, man. It's bullshit. Can't believe the buses shut down so early here. The last bus is at 11. The last bus that comes out here is 11:20 in town. On the weekends, on Sunday, it's like fucking 7 o'clock. That's insane. Write your congressman. Let's get this taken care of, man. Anyway, if you got any fucked up weird shit going on in your head, try fucking with your sleep. That's better than also diet, man. I am on such a bad diet right now, but diet is super important. Super important. Diet, sleep, exercise, I guess. I don't know. I fucking hate exercise. Again, not a medical professional here. I've dealt with a lot of medical professionals, though, and I hate them. I hate them. Nobody talked to me about diet. In regards to bipolar, nobody talked to me about diet or exercise or sleep. Nobody did. It was more just you taking the drugs, and I took a lot of drugs. I took I think 13 drugs over 2 years, 13 different powerful drugs too, from all the way from lithium to Prozac to real nasty ones like that one. Man, I didn't like that one. There was one I did like. I like Ativan. That was really nice. But that was just getting high. Eating handfuls of Ativan, man. That was dope, dude. I love that shit. It felt real nice. But the Seroquel. Seroquel is... it was... Cat Williams actually had a bit in one of his stand-up specials where he said, Seroquel is from the devil. That shit had you fucked up. And it is true. That is the nastiest drug I've ever taken, I think, is Seroquel. And I've taken some nasty drugs before, but holy fuck, man. That stuff, it made, oh man, it made it feel like my body was melting on the inside, and I was really pissed off about it. Really pissed off and tired. Oh boy. Good stuff. So, sleeping is important. Right? That's what I've learned. 37 years in. Sleep is important. It's what does weird things to your brain. I used to have this thing, so I had this thing about, I'd still do sometimes, but I'll nod off because I'm tired from not sleeping very much. I used to like to sleep a lot. Like 10, 12 hours a day. Like half the fucking day, man. That's crazy. I would still love to, but I got people around. I don't want to, be an asshole. But a nod off and do that thing, which is it's called a shit. I don't know what it's called. I used to know, but it's a something jerk, like a limbic jerk. I want to say a limbic jerk. A limbic jerk. If that's not a thing, it should be, because it sounds fucking cool. But that's when you go to fall asleep and you wake up really fast like that, and that's a leftover from when we used to like sleep in trees or something, because you couldn't. If you fell, if you were falling, you're supposed to wake up. I don't know, something like that. But did we used to sleep in trees? I might just be making this shit up, but I used to have this thing, and I still do from time to time, where that would happen, and what it would feel like is that I would fall asleep on the way down, and halfway through my face would push through to like another, like a portal or something, and I would open my eyes and I would see this scene, and I would catch just a glimpse of it, and it would be like one I remember really vividly was like from a low viewpoint, and it was a scene of like inside of a Target or something, and a checkerboard, the floors, and racks of stuff, and there was people there, and they were having a conversation. They were talking, and I could hear their words, and they made sense in the sense that I knew what the words were. Like if you overhear somebody else's conversation, like I know those words. Maybe I don't know the people they're talking about or whatever they're talking about, but I know the words. And I was there with just my face sticking. Like it felt like if they looked over, they would just see my face sticking out of the air. Just whoop, like there's Derek's face and out of that portal. And it's just for 1 second, just da, 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 and then back. And that was that whole spot. So like halfway down, I'd go through that portal, and then all the way down, I'd wake back up, and I'd have this super vivid memory of that. And it wasn't like a dream. It was like I stuck my face in someone else's life, And that would happen, and it was weird because it would happen over and over again. So sometimes it would happen 4 or 5 times in a row. Like I'd wake up and be like, all right, I'm awake. And then just a couple minutes later, out again. Never the same scene. Always something different. And it was just like, man, and sometimes it would be so complicated. Like listen to somebody talking about finances or something like that with this super smart lingo. Like just all the jargon, and then back out of it. And I'd be like, God damn it, what was that all about? Holy shit, like that was an intense fucking thing there. Anyway, that's good stuff. So sleep is important. All right, now we've got the news. I am lacking in my appreciation for news. All right, so I looked up a couple. I got three segments here, 3 news stories that I looked up. So the headline of this one is wolf, in quotes, wolf-like animal that baffled officials turns out to be a regular wolf. So this is a really excellent headline. This is from the Huffington Post today. This is from HuffPost. I don't know if is that Huffington Post? It's got to be, right? Like an abbreviation, a HuffPost. So somebody killed in Montana last month. Somebody killed an animal, and they brought it to the Fish and Wildlife Forensics Laboratory in Oregon, and showed the lupine creature. Oh wait, no, that's not right. Those guys figured it out. So in May, a rancher shot and killed this thing on his property in Denton, in Montana. And the wildlife authorities in Montana were confused because they thought it might be a wolf-dog hybrid. And so they sent it to Oregon. And Oregon was like, nah, dude, that's just a wolf. They were confused because it has short legs and big ears. It got big feet too, man. You got a tape measure 4 inches. That's a big old paw. Boy, that's a big critter right there. But they show pictures of it. It looks like a wolf. It doesn't look like a dog. I don't know. Maybe it kind of does. I don't know what animals look like. Animals are scary as fuck, man. My mom lives way out in the woods, and creatures just walk by, and she's always trying to take pictures of them and shit. It's insane, man. I cannot do that. I cannot live way out in the woods like that. It is too scary. I am too scared of creatures, of animals. Getting eaten by a bear, that would suck. That's an understatement. It would suck. I mean, okay, so I got this little teeny dog, and I like pick him up and stuff, and he just goes with it. It's not like you can fight against it. He kind of does with the leash, but it's not like you can fight against it when I pick him up. That's what a bear would be like with me. I couldn't fight against a fucking bear. If it was hungry, it wanted to eat me. Even a shitty, starving bear would fuck my world up, man. Big time. So I try to avoid it. I stay in the city. I still see animals in the city. I lived in Prescott, Arizona, man. I would see skunks all the time and javelina. Those are pigs. Packs of them right in the middle of town running around. Lizards, that's what I love that about Arizona, man. They had little lizards running all over the place. That was so fucking cool. It felt like magical, like a like Narnia or something. Just little lizards running around. Oh man, that was when you knew it was getting nice and warm, you know, because it would cool off in Prescott. It was snow and stuff, but when it was getting nice and warm, those lizards would show up. They'd be running around, scuttling all over the place. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so the wolf the wolf-like creature turns out to be a regular wolf. So Montana didn't know what was going on. Oregon picked up the tab there. They figured it out. Is one way of looking at it. It's just people. They don't know shit. All right, Dunkin. Geez, these are all from the HuffPost, it looks like. Let's see, is this one? Nope, this one's from Newsweek. All right, let's go back to this one. From the HuffPost yesterday. Dunkin Donuts sign asks customers to snitch on workers not speaking English. These headlines are long, man. Long. So Dunkin Donuts, so they have a sign in this Dunkin Donuts in Baltimore. And it says, if you hear any of our staff shouting in a language other than English, please call this number, 443-415-7775. Give it a call. Immediately with the name of the employee and receive a coupon for free coffee and a pastry. Yeah, that is definitely the meaning of snitching. So what I like about this sign is it says, if you hear any of our staff shouting in a language other than English, please call. They're like, if they're shouting in English, it's fine. But if they're shouting in some other language, Pig Latin, Spanish, Icelandic, what's that? That's the oldest language. Did you know that? Iceland. It's not called Icelandic though. What is Iceland's language called? Look it up. That's the oldest unchanged language that is available. If they're speaking in French, or if they're shouting in French, call us and let us know immediately. So we'll give you a free coffee and a pastry because we're going to fire them. Right? And they wanted to do that. They wanted to do it because it was, they want to create a welcoming and hospitable environment for all guests. My experience working in kitchens is that, you know, there's language barriers, but you get over it. Just so people got to talk. You know what I mean? You got to work. You got to talk. It doesn't matter. I worked in a kitchen where nobody in the kitchen. No, wait, that's not right. A couple of people in the kitchen spoke Spanish, but they hired some people who only spoke Spanish, and I was like, that's a little weird, but they gotta, you know, you gotta work, so that's cool. So I tried to learn a little Spanish. I didn't do well. I learned like blanco mayonezo or something like that. That's white mayonnaise. It doesn't matter. People used to come into Subway when I worked there and say, I'd like white mayonnaise. it was a weird thing. It was like everything was color coded. I like white mayonnaise, red onions, black olives, yellow peppers, green peppers. It's so stupid. Why would you say white mayonnaise? There's no other kind of mayonnaise. That, I mean, most stuff is like most all sauces are like you could call it ranch, like seasoned mayonnaise or whatever, basically. But anyway, let's get back here. So this girl got hired. She didn't speak English at all. So. And I was like, my knee jerk was that's a little bit weird. But then I was like, of course it's not weird. Everybody got to work, man. And there was a dude in there who didn't speak Spanish at all. But they started talking to each other. And they would talk to each other and giggle and make jokes and stuff. And it was fucking crazy because neither of them, they start like a couple of weeks in, they started learning. Like he would say some Spanish stuff, she would say some English stuff. You know, they started getting better. But it was more than that. They were talking for a couple of weeks without having words, but they were still communicating with each other and talking and stuff. It was fucking adorable. But they started teaching each other words and stuff, and that's what you got to do. You know, you got to learn. It's so weird that I would be like this person would show up who doesn't speak English, and I'd be like, damn, you better start learning to speak English. It's like, give me a break, man. It's just as difficult for me to start speaking Spanish. Why don't I do that? That's like I try to have empathy for people who are in America but they don't speak English well. Like if they've been here, even if they've been here for a while, and they still maybe don't speak, they don't feel quite comfortable. Like they speak English, you can understand it, but they don't necessarily speak it well. Because if you put me in another country, if you put me in fucking Japan or I don't know, France, I would live there for 50 years and not know shit. I would not know shit about how to say much less the nuance. And those are easier fucking languages than English to learn, I think. So I think it's weird. I don't think it's very cool, but who the fuck goes to Dunkin Donuts, man? Gross, bro. Ugh. Dunkin Donuts is nasty as fuck. I lived down in Yuma, Arizona, and they had a Dunkin Donuts, and literally like 3 blocks away, they had the best donut shop I've ever been to in my life. Ever. I've never been... I never had better. It was so good. It was called the Donut Corral. If you're ever in Yuma, Arizona, it was run by Amish people or Mennonites or something. Traditional folk. Good donuts, man. But what the fuck? Dunkin' Donuts. Just stay out of Dunkin' Donuts. That is the main takeaway from this article. All right, but if you think that somebody shouldn't speak the language that they speak and they should speak the language that you speak, you should just try speaking the language that they speak. It's not that easy. All right, here's the last one. This is from Newsweek. Headline: More psychopaths live in this part of the United States than anywhere else. New study shows. Can you guess where it is? Okay, so if you're feeling constantly surrounded by psychopaths, it may be that you live... Alright, here's the upshot. It's Washington, D.C. If you take a second, think about it. Just think about it. Just give it a minute. What's in high concentration in Washington, D.C. that's not necessarily in such high concentration all the other places? It's fucking politicians, man. That's what it is. Fucking psychos. Crazy ass weirdos. One of these days we're going to look at politics as a disease that people get. Like, oh, had to put the old Uncle Joe away. He caught a case of politics. He was out there campaigning like an asshole. Like a fucking asshole. So yeah, more psychopaths in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, which is not a state. How is that a thing? How is that not a fucking state? These people don't get to vote, man. That's weird. Does that mean a whole bunch of politicians don't get to vote? Do they just not live in that spot is just all the slaves that live there. That's what I felt like about Scottsdale when I worked in Scottsdale, was that there was two sides of Scottsdale. There was the real nice side, and there was the slave quarters. That's where everybody that scooped ice cream in the nice side of Scottsdale lived, was in the slave quarters. Scottsdale was dope, man. That was a that's a weird place, dude. Right. So psychos in Washington D.C. Who would have thunk it? There's a cool book called The Psychopath Test by John Ronson. Highly recommended. That's a very interesting book. It's nuanced. There's a lot of nuance involved. I like the way he said was one of the main ways that you can tell if you're not a psychopath is if you think, is it possible that I'm a psychopath? Could it be possible? I might be a psychopath. That's one of the main ways that you can tell that you're not, that you have that bit of introspection. The psychopaths don't. If you hear scratching in the background, that's the dogs. They're just, don't worry about them. They're fine. All right, on to our next segment is the Spokane Spot. That's where we highlight something about Spokane that's interesting and different from all other places. You know what's interesting? And I couldn't think of any. I don't know. I'm not trying to badmouth this place, but I do not particularly care for Spokane. I do not like it as a place. There's some people that love it, and I say power to you. There's plenty of room here for people that love it. I don't particularly care for it, and I did not think about it much prior to this recording. But one thing I've noticed around Spokane, and this is not necessarily a spot, this is just a thing, maybe other people have noticed, is these things. I don't know what they're called. I call them marmots. They look like giant gerbils, sort of, or guinea pigs, or little tiny capybaras. I really like a capybara. But they're all over the place. I've had multiple sightings, and they're adorable. Little weirdos running around to find little holes and hang out in. One of them was hanging out on a bridge. I walked to the other side of the bridge so I wouldn't mess with him. There's a spot over by our other Spokane spot, last week's Spokane spot, which was the Shogun. There's a spot over there where you can just hang out and look down, and they walk around, and the rocks and stuff. Marmots. That's my Spokane spot. I don't know if they're called marmots. I think they might be. I don't know. They're pretty big though. They look like you can make a pretty decent meal, or a nice living pillow, a little snuggle baby to take home and hang out with. I would like to hang out with a marmot. I would like to hang out with a capybara, or a guinea pig, or a gerbil if you have them. I don't want to own one, but I would fucking love to hang out with one. A squirrel, a chipmunk. I used to live over in Longview. They have huge chipmunks over there. Huge chipmunks. And they have these things called nutras. I've never seen a nutra before, but the way that I've heard them described is they're like the ROUS's in Princess Bride, except for not quite that big, but pretty big. The rodents of unusual size. They're huge. Rats. Swamp rats. Gross. That makes me want to throw up. I don't want to hang out with those. I don't want to hang out with rats. Here's a quick thing that I heard or learned is that rats' teeth are one of the sharpest things on earth. And the reason is because they're constantly growing. And so any time that they open or close their mouth, which happens quite often, anytime they open or close their mouth, they scrape on each other and sharpen. They have a self-sharpening mechanism. That's why rats' teeth are so sharp. A rat can just bite your finger right off. Good stuff. My Spokane spot ends with sharp rat's teeth biting fingers off. This is unconscious on my part. Our last Spokane spot was a place that burnt to the ground. All right, next week, some Indian burial ground somewhere that they built a football stadium on or something. We've come to the end of the show, the solo show. I hope it hasn't been a large waste of your time. It has been enlightening for me. because, like I've said before, I get to sit here and stare at myself and have a conversation with me, which works for both of us. All right, we've come to the end of our show. This is the inspirational quote of the day. Angela usually would present to me an inspirational quote. I would then shit on it if I wanted to, or because I don't like it. I hate inspirational quotes. I think it's stupid. I actually heard a few good ones though that I liked, but I just picked. We have a whole pile of them. It's like a calendar, so we just grab them. I don't know. I guess, would maybe do something different. I just grabbed one because I don't give a fuck. So our inspirational quote of the day comes from J.P. Morgan, who, John Pierpont Morgan Sr., born in 1837, died in 1913. That doesn't seem... Oh, yeah, that's a pretty long life. He was an American financier and banker who dominated corporate finance and industrial consolidation in the United States of America in the late 19th and early 20th century. Looks like a total prick. I don't know, maybe he wasn't. There's supposedly was social consciousness back then that died out like in the 20s and 30s. But who knows? Who knows? Perhaps he was very socially minded. Perhaps he took care of people. He looks like a fucking asshole. Looks like a total unhappy, just big-nosed, black mustache but white hair, big eyebrows. He looks kind of like Eugene Levy if he gained like 30 pounds and just hated himself, and he just looks intense, like a real prick. Like we're gonna take your picture today, and he's like, well, get it over with, you sons of bitches. Anyway, I don't like him. Nice suit. He does have a nice suit. Isn't that weird when you see somebody who's super ugly and gross and mean and horrible, but they got nice clothes? You're like, damn, those are some nice cut. Those are some nice clothes. Oh boy. That is a nice suit, man. I would like a suit like that. He's a big guy. He looks like a big guy like me, and that suit looks like it fits him. Like I would want a suit to fit me. I don't want some piece of shit, weird, fucking, whatever. So our quote of the day is, when you expect things to happen, strangely enough, they do happen. Yeah, that sounds about right. This guy looks like a guy that would say something like that. I don't know, that doesn't make sense. That's sort of like saying how you think things into... how you think your own reality, you think your reality. But it's pretty... it's stupid. It's a stupid thing to say when you're fucking rich as fuck, man. Because at some point, there's a delineation line, a line of delineation. I said it again 3 times. I should get a prize. I still am not sure if I'm using it right. But there's a line, a delineation, a point where you become, so wealthy that you're not fighting for it anymore. It's just happening. And you're expecting it will happen. And it does. So if you're fucking poor as fuck and you're broke as shit and your life is basically garbage, at some point there's a point where you stop expecting it to get better, and it doesn't. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe this is a factual quote or whatever. There's factual basis, but it's not inspirational. It's sort of, it might have been taken out of context. He might have been saying, yes, you're poor because you expect that to be the case. Maybe if you could expect something different, your situation would change, but it will not, because you suck, and I'm rich as fuck, and I'm just a dick. I hate him. I don't care. He's dead. I hate him and all his relatives. I hope they all get run over by hay balers. That's not a good note to end on, but anyway, thanks for hanging out to the Don't Be Fun podcast. This has been actually a good time. I have bunked tradition. I've had a good time when I was supposed to, not supposed to. You can check out this podcast on Podomatic, I don't know. You already got it. I mean, if you're here, you already got it somehow. So I don't know. YouTube's a bunch of other shit on YouTube. Look us up on Facebook. If you want to get a hold of us, send us a topic to talk about. Basically, we just have a jar with a bunch of topics in it. We just grab a topic out every week. Next week's going to be violence again, I think. If you got a topic idea, Spokane spot, an inspirational quote that you want me to shit on, because I will shit on it, or any news from around the world you want to be on here, you want to get an interview in, we're going to do that too. Well, as soon as we get our sea legs, start interviewing weirdos. If you're a weirdo that does something or doesn't, even not doing anything, that's the thing, you know. If you not do stuff so much that it's this is a thing, you know, that'd be a thing. But if you're an artist or a musician or a comic or just a business owner, maybe a writer, I don't know, flame person, a person that uses fire to do stuff, artist. If you own banks, you want to come in here and talk about stuff that happens in banks, we'll do that. We'll bring you in here, wherever here is. It's an undisclosed location. This is why we'll show up where you're at. This is low tech, man. We can travel. But yeah, you want to be in an interview, you want to give interview questions, anything. Look for us. We're Don't Be Fun, basically across everywhere. Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and SoundCloud and I don't think YouTube. It's just me on YouTube, Derek Schoonover, but you can look up Don't Be Fun. I'm really rambling right now. Really rambling. But Angela Bean is not on social media because she is very smart. And I are not. So if you want to talk to her, you want to get a hold of her, get a hold of me. Messenger me, man. Try it out. Do your thing. I don't give a fuck. Go out and support local comedy. Go see some comedy shows in Spokane. Travel to watch open mic comedy shows in Spokane. Also not open mic comedy shows. It's got a good scene here. There's a lot of funny people out there. Come from New York. Take a train all the way here to watch a comedy show and then go back home. Because we don't have room for you here. You're done. You finished, kid. You'll never work in this town again. Alright, I'm going to go. Thanks for hanging out. I think we covered everything. Good. Have a great night. Great life. We'll see you next time. Next week. At the Don't Be Fun podcast. The Don't Be Fun podcast.